Okay, folks, welcome back. So let's go ahead and see more about the read-only domain controller. So what I'm going to be looking at is comparing the RODC and the writable domain controller. So it's going to be a comparison comparing the writable domain controller, right, which is my GC, right, and versus what? Versus the RODC, the read-only domain controller. So watch this. Let me go back to server one and log on. This is a writable domain controller. And let me go ahead also to my second one, which is the read-only domain controller. Give it a moment. There we go. All right. Remember, DNS is just an actual read copy. So look, if I go to tools and I open Active Directory users and computers, and I change this to point to my second server, which is the read-only domain controller. It's going to tell me that it's a read copy. That means I cannot make any changes at all, right? Everything is grayed out. Whereas if I go to my first server, which is the writable domain controller, and I go to tools and Active Directory users and computers, and I go ahead and try to make a change, and I'm connected to the first one. Look at this. Nothing is grayed out. So I cannot make changes on the read only, but I can make changes on the writable domain controller, which is the global catalog. We don't call it writable. We just say it's another DC. If there's a read only, I would have to actually specify that. So I want to create some users just to actually show you how I give actual permissions. So if I go ahead and create, let's say a user one, let me just give it an actual password, right? And remove the check mark from the box. And let's say user two. I could just do a copy. We're going to be covering this in more details. User two, user two, and put the password right over here. Right now, what I need to do is go to this group, allowed members, and I add user one. See this? And the user two. All right. They should be able to store their passwords on the read only domain controller. Another thing that I have to do, I have to go to the domain controllers OU, double click the read only domain controller, and I have a tab. Look, if I compare these two over here, like, look, if I look at both of these, I'm going to start seeing something. So look at this. The read only has a password replication policy. The writable one does not actually have that. And you see that? So the read only has this where I could store the passwords over here. And this tells me who's actually allowed. And I already added the users in the list over here. If I click advanced over here, I could actually pre-populate the passwords manually. Accounts whose passwords are stored on the RODC, I could say user one and user two. See that? And click on yes. And now look, I stored the passwords on the read-only domain controller. So when user one and user two logs in, they are pointing to the DNS in that remote site, let's say in where? In Connecticut. Let me create that and show you how it works. So let me open sites and services. We're going to go back to sites and services later on anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and I have both of the servers right over here. So I'm going to rename this, right, to NY. And then I'm going to create another site and call it CT, Connecticut, using IP as an address, the protocol. Then OK. Then what I'm going to do is I need to move this server, watch this, and move it to Connecticut. Then OK. So Connecticut has a read-only domain controller, all right? And New York has the writable domain controller. See, I cannot replicate from Connecticut to New York, but if I double-click this, I can see it's an RODC connection from New York to Connecticut. Any changes that needs to be made has to be done in New York. This is basically a read-only domain controller. Not much to it, but it's for a remote site, as we mentioned, that we don't have a network admin on staff, and you're concerned somebody steals a DC. They can't really do much with it because they can't even log into it. That's the thing with the RODC, because it's a read copy. All right. Well, this is done with this section. We're going to go ahead and continue with a new section. So we'll see you folks in a moment. All right, everybody, later on. Bye.